Welcome to Creative Pages with Catherine. I'm Catherine. Today we are going to do the Wide Open Places project recipe mashup. And we're going to start with our Wide Open Places papers. For this project recipe, you need a sheet of the dark sea green cardstock and a sheet of designer paper for the base of your layout, and I chose the bandana-y one with the stripes on the back. You also need, two sheets. You also need 2 sheets of designer paper. I picked this one as my designer paper number 1. I put a post-it note on it so I wouldn't forget which one I picked for which cutting guide. The one with the birds was my number 2, and a piece of hot fudge cardstock. So let's get into it. I'm going to set aside my 2 sheets for my bases. I don't need my 13 by 13 mat. At least not for right now. I'm going to grab out my 12-inch trimmer. So I'm going to start with this sheet as my designer paper number 1, and it is directional, so I do want to make sure that when I cut it, my diamonds, turquoisey things are running lengthwise, because when it goes on the page it's going to be horizontal. So my first cut is going to be at 6.5 inches. So we're going to do 6.5 inches, and then we're going to cut this part in half at 6 inches. So 6.5 by 6. So we have 2 squarey rectangles. And then we're going to turn our paper 90 degrees and we're going to cut it at 4 inches twice. And then we're going to turn it again on this last one, and we're going to cut it in half at 2 3/4. So these pieces are 4 inches by 5.5, and these pieces are 4 inches by 2 3/4. We're going to go ahead and set those on the pile. Let's go ahead and cut our designer paper number 2, which I picked with the little birds on it, or I guess those aren't birds, those are flowers, and it's just a rust-colored leaf maybe. And I'm going to keep this running vertically, and we need to cut this at 4.5 inches. So 4.5 by 12. And then we're going to cut again at 4.5 by 12. So 4.5 by 12 twice. And then you're going to want to do 3/4 of an inch twice. So here's our 3/4. Make sure it's still lined up. I felt my paper slip a little. Okay, there's one, and here's 3/4 here. Oh, that really slipped. Okay. All right. See if I can get this to work with me a little bit better here. Sometimes it can get a little tricky. There we go. Holding on to the opposite side of the paper is helping. Okay. So 3/4 of an inch twice, and we're going to use the reverse side of these on our page. So I'm going to go ahead and flip those over to put on our pile. And then you should have 1.5 inches. Let me double check it. Yep, 1.5. And we're gonna turn this 90 degrees and you're gonna cut it at 6 inches. So 1.5 inches by 6 inches. And these pieces are also gonna get reversed on our page. So I'm gonna go ahead and place that on my pile reversed as well. Now we're gonna take our piece of hot fudge cardstock, and on the project recipe, you punch 2 borders. And they used the new field fence border punch, which I don't have. So instead I have some of our laser cut borders, and I'm gonna work these in where they have the borders in the project recipe. I picked out the fence, I picked out the wagon wheels, and I picked out this kind of designer one, and I'll see when we get to that point what I wind up working in. But if you have the field fence and you want to punch it, go ahead. I will use that extra bit of cardstock for the cards, of course. We're going to have scrap cards, so we'll go ahead and use it. There's not going to be a ton of scraps. In fact, there's just going to be a little bit from the cardstock because we used both of our sheets of designer paper, so this is going to be interesting for our cards. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and cut our cardstock at 3.5 inches by the 12 inches. And then we're going to turn it, and we're going to cut it at 5.5 inches twice. So there's one, and here comes the second one. Okay, so this will be towards our cards. And then we need 5.25. So let's go ahead and cut 5.25 by 12 here. Let's get my paper lined up a little better. This is what would have come out in the punching. So I am going to use it for a base of a card, and we'll probably wind up using some stickers, or maybe even if we have pieces of the laser cut borders. I will figure it out. You know I will. So let's go ahead and turn it, and we're going to do 5.25 by 3 3/4 twice. And then we need to turn this. No, because you want a third time at 3 3/4. So it's actually 3 times at 3 3/4. There we go. That makes more sense. Another strip for the cards, and then 2.5 inches twice. So we're going to have just a little 1/4 inch strip off the end here, it looks like. All right, so 2.5. Let me see where my cutting mat needs to get evened out a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and do my 2.5 inches twice. There's once, and yep, and so we have about 1/4 inch that's going to go also for our cards. Okay. So that's all our cutting. we will go ahead and start on the left side of the page as usual. I am going to use my I'm going to use the dark sea green on the left side. Here we go. And so we need, all right, let me get my piles separated here a little bit. I've got the cardstock, I've got the designer number 2, and this was our designer sheet number 1. So we need one of our 3/4 inch by 12 inch strips here, followed by our leaf and flower paper, the wider 4.5 inch by 12 inch strip. Okay. We need one of our mats we cut out of our designer paper here, designer number 1. And then we're going to place one of our second hot fudge on top of it. We also need I think I'm actually going to turn this over. It doesn't call for it to be turned over, but I kind of like it turned over better. So I'm going to turn mine over, and then I need where is it? One of these. One of our brown hot fudge and one of these smaller strips that was 6 inches by 1.5 inches, and then one of these smaller hot fudge squares also go down here. Does that look okay? They put these kind of together. They're running a border across the bottom of both pages and a border across the top of both pages. So I'm going to hold on to figure out the borders until I get the right side of my page done, and then we'll probably wind up cutting them in half is what I'm guessing. Yep. It looks like they cut the others in half, and so we won't have so much border left for our cards, but that's okay. I'll still figure it out for y'all. Let's go ahead and get this stuck down. It also looks like they've used a border sticker outside of our little piece of designer paper here. So leave a little bit of space so you have room to put in a border sticker as well. Okay, I just wanted to double check and make sure I had all of the pieces on here that are supposed to be on here. It feels like I have a lot of paper left on my table, but I do have it all correct. So here we go. This is kind of almost centered up a little bit because they put a kind of like a maybe they took one of the mats and cut it in half and created like a journal box down here with a sticker on the picture of the project recipe. We'll see how we feel about things once we get the rest of our pieces stuck down here. This needs to go this way because we're putting the border pieces above and below. And it's interesting because it looks like they're, you know, I think I stuck this one the wrong direction. Let me get my multi-purpose tool and fix that because they don't really have any of the paper or cardstock showing. We should be able to fix this. It's okay, don't worry about it. If I'm not worried, you don't need to be worried, because we're just going to cover it back up. Usually I don't push these down until I'm sure, but this just becomes a good teachable moment here, I guess. Yep, so it goes the other way. It goes with the long way running against the edge of the paper, and it's overlapping your other piece just a little bit as well. So re-put that down. We are gonna have, oh, here we go. There we go, see? Not too big of a deal. And once you get the picture on there, I don't even think I can see where that was. Whew. I didn't think I was worried, but apparently I was a little bit worried about it. All right. So this goes against here. And it also doesn't look like it has any green showing on either side. I'm guessing that I put my left side of my page a little bit too far over, so I'm just going to center this under here, and that I am okay with having a little bit of the green showing. Finally, our hot fudge cardstock. And this is a photo mat. They do have a photo on it in the picture. Here we go. All right, let's go ahead, and that's the left side of the page for now. I will be adding the border and border sticker and maybe a couple other stickers coming up. We'll see once I get the right side done. So here's the piece I picked for the right side. And we also have, I'm going to flip this as well, and at least now I know to turn it so it goes more lengthwise here. We have our bird sheet again, or not. I don't know why I keep wanting to call it a bird sheet when it's clearly not birds, but this is going to tuck under here just a hair. We have our longer strip here. Oh, everything's going crooked now. That's okay. Our piece that goes under here, and the mat. Oh no, that looks a little bit busier than the other side. I wonder if no, because that's running the wrong direction now. Look at that. I cut it intending to think that I had it going the right way, and I didn't have it going the right way after all, did I? Okay, this is what I was wondering. I feel like I was missing where to put both of these. All right. So this goes here. This goes here, and this goes here, and then I need to figure out where to put these. It goes actually underneath here. Aha. So it looks like I will be lifting this one to stick this under. We'll do that in just a minute. Okay. I thought it looked like we had too much going on here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start with my longer strip again, and that's just going to run up the side of the page. I'm going to leave about, I think I left about 1/4 of an inch on the other one, and we'll just do about the same here. There we go. Here's our longer strip as well, going right next to our other one. And then I think I'm okay to put this down. Yes, I am. Although actually I may just go ahead and put this one down first. I'll pull in this other sheet so I can get them lined up kind of like how I usually try to do. It just seems to make them a little bit nicer. Oops. Of course, it's a little bit harder now that I've got my other piece loose on here and what have you. It's all right. There we go. I will make this work. There we go. All lined up. This was on top of here. And these go on top of here. This is our mat with our designer paper first. I guess what's the point of having double-sided designer paper if you don't use both sides? Here we go. And our extra strip. Just center this again, and now that we know this is a mat, we're going to put this down here with our little piece of hot fudge cardstock on top of it. Okay, let me get out my multi-purpose tool and get this one worked up, because there we go. This way we can get this one down. And here we go. We're just covering up the couple little pieces of tape runner that stayed on. And this is going to stick just fine. Okay. Alright, so let me grab my borders and see. I did like the idea of the fence along the bottom and kind of the wagon. Maybe that needs to switch. No, that needs to be the darker. And since all of our borders are double-sided, maybe that needs to be a little darker too. Yeah, because of the hot fudge cardstock, it looks nice and dark. Let's use the dark fence as well. I think we're going to put the fence at the top. Or maybe we should put the little ruffle at the top. With the wagon wheels across the bottom. We'll leave the fence for our cards. I like the bringing back in this red, and the green I think is going to make too much green, and especially since we're using the plaid paper, these two just kind of seem to tie in together very nicely. The fence looks all right. It just kind of disappears a little bit, whereas this pops a little bit more, and I think it'll stand up to our pictures nicely. So I'm going to grab my trimmer again. We're going to cut these in half at 6 inches because they're all 12-inch borders. And here we go. There's 6 right here. Okay, yep, looks like we're going to cut right through the middle of this wheel. And the second one here, I'm going to turn it so the straight edge is along my straight edge for my trimmer. There we go. That one actually cut right in the middle. Nice. Okay. Grab the parchment board. If you haven't seen my parchment board before, I use electrical tape to adhere parchment to a sturdy piece of cardboard. So that way when I use my repositionable tape runner, it doesn't go into all these little holes on our borders or punched pieces, and it just makes it look much neater, and then it keeps the tape runner from sticking all over either your table or your cutting mat or wherever else you might be working. Just makes life nicer. Makes crafting a little cleaner, I guess. All right, so I'm going to put the cut edge towards the end here. I had to think for a minute on this that I wanted the red or the green, and I knew I wanted the red, so I'm going to put this kind of centered as well on here, top of this page. Although if I had made a mistake, I could have just used my finger to rub it off. That's also part of the beauty of the repositionable tape. There we go. And the darker side, okay. And again, I'm going to put the cut end of the border towards the edge of the page here. Whoops. I wonder if I lined it up with this sheet the way I am now. Hang on one second. Let's see if I just kind of did it. No, I put it a little bit inside. So let's go ahead and put this one a little bit inside as well, because I like symmetry. And there we go. Okay, I'm going to pull out my stickers. And take a look and see which, in the project recipe they use this one along the edges of the page. I don't know if I want to add that much more color. I think I'm going to use these ropes just because they look fun. So you always kind of work from one end to the other here. It's always nice to kind of have things anchored a little bit. There we go. There's one. And let me grab this other one as well. And here, I'll show you that page in just a minute because we're going to probably separate these to add a couple of other stickers as well. Okay, hang on, this end is crooked and it's going off the page a little, which isn't that big of a deal because I can always get out my microtip scissors and just trim it off, but I don't want to this time if I can help it. Okay, so we have our wagon wheels and we have our rope and we have a lot of color. I do think we do need a couple of stickers though. And we have a sticker here that says, "Some old-fashioned things like fresh air and sunshine are hard to beat" by Laura Ingalls Wilder. I'm going to put that up in here because we have so much hot fudge on here. I think the sticker just fits. I'm going to take 3 of my larger foam squares to add a little extra dimension to it. Oops. And here we go. We're going to put that up here. And like I said, if you want to add a small journal box here, you can. I'm going to add these like flowers that kind of match the florals in our paper and kind of have it going over between the two. I just think it's going to kind of anchor our pages a little bit as well. And that's going to go over here. And we probably, I'm going to put one more sticker, I think, either here or here. I think I like the idea of the rope and hat, just to repeat also our rope borders that we have. So I'm going to grab this little hat and I'm going to put it up here and grab the rope and put it over this way. And I think that's going to be it. So there is our Wide Open Spaces project recipe. I hope you enjoyed putting it together with me. And I will be doing at least probably one scrap card with the leftover hot fudge cardstock. And stay tuned for the mashup. Here we are back with our project recipe mashup for the Wide Open Places. I've pulled out some of the Wanderlust collection to use for our second set of pages. I've pulled a tone-on-tone sheet to use for my designer sheet number 1 because I liked both sides of it. I've pulled a regular designer sheet to use for my second set. And I have the hot fudge cardstock again. For my base, I've picked this designer sheet and a piece of navy cardstock just to mix it up a little bit. So I'm going to set aside my 2 sheets for my bases, and I'm going to pull my trimmer out again, and let's get cutting. Okay. So we're going to start again with our 6.5 by 12 inch cuts. And we're going to cut it in half at 6 inches. And then if you'll remember, we took our other part, we turned it 90 degrees, and we did 4-inch cuts twice. And then on the third one, so this is 4 inches by 5.5 inches twice. And then we're going to turn this again 90 degrees and cut it at 2 3/4 inches. So 2 3/4 by 4 to give us these little mats for our pictures. On our second designer sheet, we're going to cut at 4.5 inches twice. So 4.5 by 12 once and twice. need 2 3/4 inch cuts, and you can use either side of your trimmer for this. I'm just continuing moving towards the left here, holding my paper down with my right hand. If you're more right-handed, I tend to be a little bit ambidextrous. Take it and use this other side of your trimmer so that way you can hold it with your left hand while you cut with your right, and you'll still get the 3/4 inch by 12 piece you need. With this final 1.5 inch strip, we're going to turn it at 90 degrees and cut it in half at 6 inches. Okay, and these were the ones that we flipped, and so we're going to be using the brown side of those. And finally, we are going to actually do the border on this one. I'm going to set my trimmer aside for just a moment. I have pulled out my Camber Chain Border Maker cartridge. It's a little bit of an older Border Maker cartridge, but we do have another one. It's a photography chain Border Maker cartridge that is currently for sale on my Creative Memories website. And you can go ahead and get that one. The main difference is it doesn't have the star and it has a larger single camera. But this is going to give us an idea of what it looks like with the borders. So let's go ahead and put this into our Border Maker holder here. I pulled out the bottom tray to line up my paper. I'm folding it back under. I'm going to line up the notches both on the punch and on the holder. And I'm going to punch. I'm going to grab a quick bag to put these in. I don't know if this is going to work out for the cards or not. Since it's all hot fudge cardstock, we might not actually even be able to see these things. But we'll see what I come up with. We may need to add a scrap of something else for our cards, but I will save the pieces just in case. You never know where some of these little bits might wind up on a card. All right, so let's set aside our Border Maker system and pull our trimmer back in. And we need 3.5 inches first, 3.5 by 12. Let's see here. 3.5 by 12, and then we're going to turn it and we're going to do 5.5 twice. And if you remember, the edge of the blue is also our 5.5 inch mark on our trimmer. It falls right into the crease inside of our trimmer, and sometimes it's just easier to not have to unfold the arm if we don't need it. I'm going to set that aside. We're actually probably going to just combine all the card scraps. So 5.25 is what we should have left here, and actually I have a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. We're going to trim this to 5.25, probably from using a Border Maker versus using the actual border punch, which those tend to be a little bit larger. So I'm going to set that aside. Go ahead and turn it, and you need 3 3/4 twice, actually 3 times. So 3 3/4 3 times. It always goes a little bit smoother the second time. So there's 3 3/4 and 3 3/4. Oops. There we go. Oops. Okay. Let's see. I didn't quite use my tension the way I should have. There we go. Sometimes I don't press as hard as I should. And you know what, I'm going to set these aside because I feel like I used 2 of my mats in the wrong place on the other layout, and we'll find out. So these are 5.25 by 3 3/4 for the first ones. Let me get this third 3 3/4 cut. And here we we go. So this is extra, and then we're going to turn this at 90 degrees again and cut it at 2.5 inches. Okay, so these pieces all looked the same to me on the first one, and I forgot that we had, these are 5 1/4 and these are 5 1/2, so they're just ever so slightly different, and we'll see if we wind up putting them in a slightly different placement on this next layout. So I'm going to put one to the left and one to the right on my pile. Go ahead and set your 12-inch trimmers aside. Grab out whatever you're using for the left side of your layout, and let's see. Yep. Okay, so I think I did. These were supposed to have gone on the part there. Okay, so I'm gonna set that aside a minute. Let's get our thinner strips, our 12-inch by 3/4 inch strips, and then next to our other camera strips here. Or do I like it better? Oh, I might like it better like that. Let's play around with that a minute. Let me get out my other designer piece here. And we know it goes the long way now. Okay. I kind of like it with the leather and the airplane and just a little bit of the camera, because we are going to have our camera border going across as well, and that'll pull in some of this. Okay, so there's that. We have our five 1/4 by 3 3/4 goes here, and then the 5 1/2 by 3 1/2 goes on this other piece. So that's the part that I missed on the last one. I had forgotten that they weren't all quite the same, but I still think our pages turned out looking great. I just kind of want to give you all a little bit more flavor of the actual project recipe. Let's see here. I think I'm going to repeat the camera down here, and I will try to scoot this against the edges. So I think I'm going to build it from the right instead of the left this time. What else do we need on here? This and this. Other way. Yep. Designer paper on the bottom, cardstock on top, and we need a piece of designer paper underneath our other mat over here. And I think that's everything except for our border, which we'll put in last. So I kind of want this up a little bit higher, and so that way this can go up a little bit higher and over just a little bit, so there's space down here for this as well. Okay. All right, we are ready to start taping things down. Let me see if I can find where I hid my tape runner. Okay, let's go ahead and place this one first. All right. Lining this up. This one up next to this one, and also along the edge of the paper this time. Again, just to give you all not only a different look with the papers, but also slightly different look with the placement. And I'm actually going to place this below as well, instead of layered the way we had in the other one, and I will bring the other pages back in to show you again so you can see the differences that I'm talking about here. Okay, this one went across here. And okay. over a little bit. I'm going to actually place this one. Oh, maybe not. I think I am going to continue building from the right. Okay. So this is going to layer over here. So it's going to line up with the edge of this other piece down here. So that way we don't have any of the cardstock showing on either side of our papers here. And I'm going to put it on top, whereas the last time I put this on top of the other one. Hopefully this isn't confusing any of you, but the beauty of video is you can watch it over again. I just like to mix it up a little bit. There's nothing wrong with showing slightly different ways to do it, because there really is no wrong way to put these together. Like I said, I'm not the best at direction following a lot of the time anyways, but I am try to get you in the ballpark at least. And with these, it's easy enough to do. Here we go. That looks a little bit better on there, and that looks a little bit better in there. Okay, so our left side is done. I'm going to do the borders last again. Pull in the right side of our page here. Let's grab our, let's see, this goes this way and it kind of disappears, so I'm going to use the airplanes again. We are going to grab our, we'll go ahead and do it as the leather and the photo strip again. This one goes here. This goes down here on top of this other one. It also is going to show the cameras, and it's going to be against the edge as well, like I did on the opposite side. Here we go. And now again, the 3.5 by 5.5 is going this on this rectangle-y piece, I guess, and this one's going by the 4.5 by 12. We're going to angle this one up. This is the 5.25 by 3 3/4. There we go. Okay. So this one I need to build from the left side, but I'm going to grab my other sheet a moment so I can get things lined up again, how we did before. Here we go, grab this off of here. And, okay. I don't know, it's hard to tell if there's an up and a down to the airplane. I guess it really doesn't matter all that much. Here we go. Okay. So that's our first piece. I'm going to set this other one aside, and this one's going to go slightly below again. Here we go. This one, whoops, not the first time. Here we go. Okay, so this one's going to go overlap so that it lines up with this edge here of our photography paper. There we go. Okay. There's our mat going down on here. And finally our last, what was this, 3/4 of an inch? Yes, 3/4 of an inch by 12-inch strip. Nestled up to this other one. Oops. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and cut our borders in half. So that way we can get those placed on the page. Pulling out my 12-inch trimmer again. We're gonna line these up at the 6-inch mark and trim them in half. Right through the middle of the camera. That's okay. There's one. And here's the second one. I'm kind of keeping these together, although actually it looks like it lines up pretty nicely. Let's go ahead and get those going on the left side of our page here. We'll run this one here, just through the middle of the photography paper with the luggage. Let me grab my repositionable tape runner and parchment board. Here we go. Okay. So that's the left side. Here we go with our right side of our page. Grabbing my other border here. And it really doesn't matter which side it goes on because these are mirrored pictures, if you will, mirrored punches because of the cardstock we used. Whoops. There we go. Okay. So that's that. Let me pull out. I want to actually find a journal box to add to this one so you all can see how that looks on the page for down here, kind of like we talked about was in the picture for the other side. Let's see here. No, well, that actually would pull in some of the blue. I think that would be too dark. And these are just the Wanderlust mats. I'm looking at the larger mats because I think that's what makes a little bit more sense for the space. Yes, so I'm thinking I'm probably going to go with this side of this mat. Nope, I'm going to actually do this one, I think. And then we can cut just a little bit of white cardstock, or we can just write in the space with the dots here also, or there's a smaller one that has lines and north, south, east, and west on it. I like this one better. We're gonna go with it. We're gonna go for it. Using one of our larger mats, one of the 4x6, nope, 4.5 by 6.5 mats. And I forgot to pick out a border sticker for our edges as well. And look at that, there's a camera on here. It's almost as if it was planned. We're going to use the camera, and then we'll look for another couple of stickers here. Let me get this cut first. So 3 1/4 is half of 6 1/2. So that should be exactly in the middle of our journal box here. And I'm actually going to put it this other direction so I can just write across it. And if you don't like the dots, you feel free to cut a smaller piece of white cardstock or use your index sheet and put white over it to do your journaling in. I'm not going to do that today. I am going to scoot this over so I can attach this. Here we go. Oh, I like it. It just really seems to go with everything that's on the page here. I'm going to grab my camera border sticker for up here on the edge of my other camera paper. And to get that on both sides of my pages here. It's almost as if it was meant to be, right? Now let's find a couple other stickers. Okay, so there's travel stories. That might be cute for this page, I think. And we can use the stacked luggage down here, I think. Looks nice because it pulls in that blue. I like it down here. I'm not even going to use a foam square on it. Let me grab that travel stories. Where did I see it? Here. That's going to go on the left side at the top, kind of where we put our other quote. Just going across our leather corner there. So we have the luggage, we have the borders. It needs a little something else. And I could pull an embellishment. Look, there's another camera, but I think we already have enough cameras on here. How's about we pull this other suitcase and maybe work it in right here, and that one actually is going to get a foam square. Large one and a small one because the handle narrows out a bit. Just into there. And then we need something kind of up in this top part. So we have this, but it almost needs to kind of recenter a little bit for our eyes. Our pictures are going to do some of that drawing across the page as well, but I feel like we need a little something up across here. How's about these two little arrows? So we have one that has this brown and blue that I think I'm going to put on the left side because we have, hang on, a gray one. Actually, the gray one probably needs to go on the left side because in that way we can actually see it. So we're going to point that way with that one, and we'll point this way with that one. Kind of going together there. All right. So there you go. There's our Wanderlust pages using the Wide Open Places project recipe. And I'm going to bring back in our Wide Open Places pages as well. Here we go. And so that way you can see them side by side, next to each other, on top of each other. Here we go. Wanderlust and Wide Open Places. And I will be back soon with the cards. It's time to do our scrap card from our Wide Open Places and Wanderlust project recipe mashup. We mostly have brown cardstock to work with. So this one definitely is a challenge. I did grab one of my blank cards from my card kit, and we do have this half mat from the Wanderlust project recipe, but we are gonna make use of our brown cardstock, our mat, and a couple of our stickers to add a little bit of color to our card. I am going to first take off a 1/2 inch from this long strip of cardstock that we had left. And then I'm going to score it halfway, which is going to be at the 5.5 inches. So let me get my scoring blade. And I couldn't figure out a use for our leftovers from our punching, so this time we're just not gonna use it. Sometimes I can figure out a use for it that makes sense with our other scraps, and sometimes I just can't. Okay, so this is now scored halfway. I'm gonna grab my, I wasn't quite halfway, was I? Let me fix this. Looks like I am about a 1/4 inch off, and so there we go. I wasn't quite, well, my sheet. Let's check this. Here we go. I'm at 11.5, and I need to be at 11. So I took off a 1/2 inch. I needed to take off an inch. That's what happened. Okay, so which end is my longer end? There we go. Take off a 1/2 inch from the side. All right. Sometimes the math clicks also, and sometimes not as much as other times. Whoops, and I've got to switch my blade. Whoops. All right. Goodness, maybe I feel like I should start this video over. There we go, all fixed. Okay, so instead of cutting a 1/2 inch off, cut an inch. I will put a note. Hopefully everybody will see it at the beginning. My apologies. Scrap cards are not a precise science here. Putting my blade back under with my other blades. I'm going to set my trimmer aside for now. And I have my multi-purpose tool, so I can help my fold here. And we are going to, whoops, put this here, put that there. We're going to open up our card, and we're going to wrap this through our card front and the inside panel. And just so it's a nice, cohesive look to our card. It gives us something a little different than what I've done before. So this end is going to go down here. And then we're going to open our card, and we're going to go ahead and put down this other part. There we go. And now we are going to, oh, nope, I do need the trimmer because I wanted to take off. Let me get my ruler because I think it's going to be 1/8 of an inch on each side here. Did I just say that scrap cards aren't a precise science? Yes. All right. We do need to take 1/8 of an inch off of each side of our mat, unless you don't mind it hanging off, but then it wouldn't fit in the envelope snugly. It would make it odd for that, and I'm all about having a card that can fit in an envelope, so when you give it to a person, it's you write their name on the envelope, and it's a nice presentation. So the 1/8 of an inch, just in case you're not as familiar with our trimmers, it's from you're always cutting along your left cutting lane, and the right cutting lane is at 1/8 of an inch. This other dotted line here, the 1/4 of the inch is the end of the gray cutting mat. So you just want to go line up at the edge to the end of the dotted line here. Let's see. Okay. There we go. So now I'm almost afraid to set the trimmers aside again, but go ahead and set your trimmer aside. We'll pull it out again if we need it. Here we go. We are going to put our mat going across our card front here. And then I pulled one of our other scraps, and it's just the right width for the interior of this mat, and it is, let's see, it's 1 inch by just under 3.5, well, yep, just under 3.5 inches, right at 3.5 inches. And I'm going to go ahead and run that through the center just to break up some of these dots a little bit. There's nothing wrong with the dots if you're going to journal on them or whatever it is you're going to do, but for this card, I just wanted a cleaner look. And then I'm also going to grab these border stickers here, and I'm going to cut this one off, micro tip scissors, right underneath the diamond, because I think that this is going to fit right in here really nicely also. Oops. Running along the interior of our mat, just lining up with the side. I need to center this a little bit better, don't I? Hang on, let me take my finger out of the way so we can have just a little bit showing at the top and bottom there. Oops. Of course. All right. There we go, multi-purpose tool. Help me shift this over just a hair. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same on the opposite end of my border. So this is the one I cut down at this end, and I'm going to take the other end and the diamond as well. So that way I still have this entire midsection with a little diamond as well to have later. And I'm going to run this arrow going down, or should I run them both going up? Let's see. Let's run them both going up. And if you want to run one going down, go for it. Okay, so we have those two, and then there's a fun Hello Darlin' sticker here. Just thought this would be fun for a great Thinking of You card here. Oops. As usual, my fingers are getting stuck. That's what they do apparently. And then I think on the end here, I am going to go ahead and cut half a foam square just for this edge, just so that way the end of our H doesn't kind of droop and hit the face of the card, and we want it to be neat. So I'm going to grab this, cut one of my foam squares in half. There we go, put that back on the sheet, pull this off of my scissors because it's not going to stick to my scissors. And Okay, the paper came off in the process, which is fine. Just means I need to be a little more careful when putting this down here. Whoops. There we go. Okay. So that way our H in our hello is going to get bumped up. There we are. And now this is going to get centered over our little cardstock strip that we put on here. There we go. And see how nice that is with that H not falling down on us? Just makes it more cohesive. I love it. Super cute, super easy, very quick. That's it. If you want, you can add a couple of stars, maybe up and down if you want. You can add another part of the border to the top and bottom, but I kind of like the simplicity of this. We do have some extra scraps, I know. Usually I do try to use more, especially of the odd strips, but with this one it just didn't make sense, so we will have it ready to go for something else. I don't know what. I may wind up doing a video of just our leftover odd scraps we've had from things. We haven't had many. I feel like this is a little more than typical. But what do you do with a whole lot of brown and nothing else? Not much. I also wanted to show you all, I did the Wide Open Places sketch with me, and I had this extra strip left from that, and I thought, you know, this would be a fun way to decorate the top of an envelope. And I kind of had looked at it in the video, and then I didn't think about adding this extra piece behind to separate behind this strip here. So I'm going to take my scissors, I'm going to line this up, and I thought, you know, why not make this a bonus on the project recipe? Hopefully y'all are watching the Sketch It With Me series as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and cut it a little bit wide. Take that part off. I am going to grab out my trimmer. And we're going to cut this piece in half. And I hope that what it looked like it would do in my brain is going to work on the card or the envelope here. What is this, 4.5? So 2 1/4 is our halfway point. Like I said, I'm not sure if math is really agreeing with me today, but it's a scrap envelope, so we'll see what happens. So I might, let's see here. Okay, yep, that's gonna work. And we can try to line it up so where it looks like it flows with the pattern, the direction of the pattern on the bigger piece as well. But you're kind of going to have to place your squares first because the other piece has to go over it. That's just the way it's going to be. Let's see, that one's off a little bit on that side. Trying to match up this, some of these, there we go, the stems. Trying to get the right word for these things. Here we go. That has a little bit of, okay, close enough. It's going to have just a tiny touch of white showing on that side, but I'm going to go ahead and put the tape actually on the envelope part because we are going to cut off whatever hangs over our envelope fold. And then I'm going to line this up. Okay, let's go ahead and put our tape on here too. Kind of feel like I'm working this backwards of the way we do everything else, but it's okay, right? Y'all are still following me, I think. Okay, so that's lined up with the top fold of the envelope. And now we have our paper on there, I am going to go ahead and cut along with my scissors, just following the line of the curve of the envelope. And there we go. Okay, you can see there's a little tiny bit of white there, but I think that's just because we know it was there, and it does kind of have this little curve. So maybe we'll look at adding. Okay, I'm going to get rid of these tiny pieces because it is okay to have an occasional scrap that does get tossed. But I'm going to look at maybe adding one of our brown strips, maybe. Or I wonder if we did it, if we punched something. Hang on. Let me get out our barbed wire still in the border maker. I am going to punch real quick this strip, and we'll put a little barbed wire here, and that'll also kind of distract from the fact that we have the curve here. So give me just a moment. I'm going to pull out my tray, and our piece, of course, is really too narrow, so I'm grabbing the Post-its. We're going to make use of our Post-its again, so that way it holds it at the right position for the punching. So there's one, and here comes number two. There. So now the magnet is holding our Post-it, and our Post-it is holding our paper that we're going to punch. And I'm going to do what I forgot to do in my video. All right, set my envelope aside, pull this out. Here we go. Got the punching mat, and here. Line up your notches and go. Tread gently. Okay, I'll start from this end because I could feel it pulling a little. One lined up. Here's our last one. Oh, it's moving on me. Oh no, because I did the sticky part first. Okay, so let's see. Yep, we have enough for our card. Let me go ahead and toss our Post-it notes, or recycle them better. Here, take off the sticky part there and grab my scissors. I'm going to cut this along here, and then I'm going to cut between the two barbed wires. There we go. All right, let me move a few things around here, get rid of this. And parchment, repositionable tape, runner, and here we go. Let's put these on. And I think it's okay if it's hanging off just a little bit, because we can trim that also with our scissors. This up just a little bit the way I angled it on the other one. I think it's okay if it's crossing over. There we go. Flip this over, go ahead and cut along the edge of the envelope again. Okay. And now I am going to grab one of those stars for the center of our barbed wire here. And we have a brown star, which would disappear. I have a gray star and I have a turquoise star. And I'm thinking about pulling in, let's see, these both match our other sticker. I feel like the larger one does a little bit more for us, so let's go ahead and put that right here in the middle of the two barbed wires. And there we go. We have a cutely decorated envelope. Let me, oops, I missed a little bit of barbed wire that went over this interior curve here. There we go. Can't have any rough edges here. And now hopefully this is close enough. Since the last time I went a little too close, I am going to check and make sure I have it in the camera close enough for y'all to see. I went ahead and trimmed it up nicely. And here's our card, which with our nicely decorated envelope that you can give to somebody. So cute. And like I said, if you do the wide open spaces sketch with me, that's where you'll have this a little bit of extra paper, and use whichever border maker that you used in that as well. Or you can even take, we had some picket fence, you could even use the picket fence on it. So thank you all so much for joining me in my continuation of the project recipe mashups. I really appreciate your business and your supporting my small business. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Until next time.